My first wife passed away 12 ago and I was really young at that time. I did my best to get over the loss and move on. I loved her in the past, but it's my past now and I need to live the present for myself. I found another love. I met my girlfriend 7 years ago. I love her and she has always respected that I am a widower. I don't really name my first wife except on occasions when I tell an anecdote where she is there, and I don't have pictures or anything of her in my home. I don't have pictures of anyone actually. Frames do not fit the decoration of the house. I want to give my girlfriend the place she deserves. I've had many bad experiences in a grief help group and learned what not to do in a new relationship. I'm going to get married in November. At first I didn't know whether to invite my first wife's family because I didn't know if they would want to attend, so I never said anything to them or invited them to the wedding. I don't talk with them except for a text every few months, but her mother was the one who texted me to tell me that she would be very happy to go, so I ended up inviting her and her husband. They kinda invited themselves and I have problems with saying no, much more in that kind of situation. On the weekend we were putting some things together and my mother told me that it would be good to put an extra chair in honor of my first wife. That was an idea of my late wife's mother, but she didn't talk about that with me first but with my mother. We pay per seat. Each chair we put up is charged as if it were a person. They would even charge me for drink and food, as if someone was really present, and honestly I am quite tight financially on the wedding, so I think it would be a waste of money and something symbolic, because if I do that for her I also have to do that for all the members of my family who died because they would complain. Abu Tiyat, my father and brother also died, so that would be even more money. I'm not a spiritual person neither, so I don't believe in those things and I don't like any kind of ritual or symbolic thing. I also don't want to have a moment to talk about deceased people and kill the atmosphere. I just want a nice and joyful wedding for my girlfriend. Just to make my mother shut up, I said that if someone offers to pay the money I will ask for more chairs. There would be 7 relatives, too many. I knew that nobody was going to pay for that, because I can't spend money in more things, but no one talked and I thought that she would forget that. But my mother said that then I should include photos of me with my first wife when they show the typical video of the bride and groom as they grow up. I just don't want to do that. I even find disrespectful for my girlfriend to put pictures of my first wife when I'm getting married again, let alone make a whole video about those times. It's just weird to me, but I know that there are widowers who have done so. It leaves me confused. My first wife appears in some of the photos I chose to go through in the video, not the one my mother wants me to do. In photos where I'm traveling with friends or family, it's not that I'm hiding her identity or anything like that, but I just want that moment to be my wife and mine. I already healed. My mother has been doing everything to make me feel guilty, and honestly it's hard not to feel guilty when the words come from a person who went through the same thing as me. I know my girlfriend would agree because she's really kind and she has already said that she is not really interested in what others think because she is the one who will be my wife. I'm the one who feels uncomfortable, Ada? I want that moment to be my girlfriend and mine. I already had that moment with my first wife years ago. Now I want to have this moment with her. Is it a bad thing? Edit. Please stop recommending me to make a table with photos of the dead, make a speech, put centerpieces, etc. I don't want to do any of that. NTA. Money aside, tribute chairs at weddings mean if only this person were alive today, they would be sitting here. That's true if it would be Op's dead parent or grandparents or sibling. But this is Op's late wife. If only she were alive today, the assumption is that Op would be married to her and not marrying his current fiancée. Even if he were divorced, it is unlikely his ex-wife would attend the wedding now, unless they parted on extremely friendly terms. It seems that Op's in-laws from his first wife just want her to be acknowledged because this is a difficult moment in their grieving process. If Op puts pictures around, and an empty chair and gives a toast, or whatever else they will ask for, then they can pretend Op hasn't moved on and his late wife still takes precedence. Op, don't do it. It takes something away from the most important romantic relationship in your life today, to use your wedding day as a time to honor your late wife. Update 1. I talked to my girlfriend about the exact situation. Until now she had always said that she doesn't care and supports me in whatever I decide. But when I told her that it makes me uncomfortable and what my mother said, she just got angry and told me, let's talk to your mother. She has the balls, I don't have, tbh. When my ex-Mill found out about my engagement, she sent me a message saying, I'm really happy for you, me and, her husband's name, would love to attend. I really didn't know how to reject such a direct self-invitation, and my wife told me to invite them if I felt comfortable with that. At that moment I had no problem since they had always been respectful people. That was a big mistake. I talked to my mother and she showed me that my ex-Mill started to send her random messages after I posted about getting married with my girl. My ex-Mill sent her messages like, today I really miss my daughter. It's a shame that your son is forgetting her, since it would be a good idea to visit her grave, but he never wanted to, or my daughter really would have loved to attend the wedding. She even sent audios to my mother saying a lot of other things. They had contact from time to time, so my mother didn't find that too weird. My mother felt pressured, and under her own beliefs she also pressured me. She apologized to me and my wife and said she was out of line. Honestly, that triggered me. My mother lost a son and a husband. I grew up seeing how people expected the same thing they expected of me from her. I got angry and talked to my ex-Mill. It really bothered me that they tried to manipulate my mother, knowing what she suffered and how sensitive she is about that topic. Ex-Phil apologized and his wife did not. She said she finds it disrespectful that I don't do anything in honor of her daughter, and that I even stopped wearing my wedding ring when she died. I'm not going to take that personally. I know that the death of a child is really hard, but I'm not an extension of her daughter, I am my own person. I just told them that they're no longer invited to the wedding because I was very kind, but they didn't respected me, my mother and my girlfriend. I told X-Mill that I will make my whole family block them from everything if she keeps trying to make my mother feel bad. Until the end she stood her ground and never said sorry. Was I cruel? I don't care, I don't owe them anything. My mother lost her husband and they used it to manipulate her mind. They stopped being my family when their daughter died. I always just had a respectful treat with them, nothing more. I won't make a table in honor of anyone. I won't make a video in honor of anyone or anything like that because me and my wife want it to be a happy day. I'll only have my brother's favorite beer and wine because it's something that cute drunk told me in life that he wanted, ha. My wife said she never lost anyone close to her, so she really doesn't need to pay tribute to anyone. The only thing that will be honored will be the union of me and my wife's because that's the thing that makes my days perfect and filled with happiness. I don't like symbolic things because I believe that the dead are dead and that's it. They are not still by my side or anything like that, but that's my belief and point of view. Everyone can have a different point of view. To be honest, I thought I would get a lot of OODA. Since my father passed away, it has seemed strange to me how people see widows and widowers. Everyone wanted my mother to continue loving my father even after he passed away, and when it happened to me I felt the same pressure. I'm a bad person for loving my girlfriend so much more than I loved her? Am I wrong for feeling that the worst loss in my life was my brother's and not my wife's or father? All the widows have pictures of their deceased partners. I'm a bad person for not wanting to do that? Should I still wear my wedding ring like the widows from the grief counseling does? But I don't want to, or am I a bad person for not feeling anything for her anymore? I felt guilt many times long time ago. They were questions that I asked myself daily as soon as I began my relationship with my wife, questions that I don't ask at all anymore, but they really tortured me because what is usually expected of a widower is that we are that forever, never the husband, eternally the melancholic character even if we have found someone new. We are always expected to love our deceased partner even if we have a new person because you can romantically love two people at the same time, but what if I don't want to? What if that's not for me and I want to give all my love to just one person? What if I want to move on with my life? I think at this point I'm just venting, so I'm sorry if you made it this far. Haha, be kinder to new wives and husbands and don't force them to be the bigger person. I felt ready to start dating 2 years later and I met the love of my life a few years later. But I know a lot of married people who shouldn't be because they're still grieving and sending all that mental load to their partners or making them feel like a second place. Please learn that it is good to be alone when you do not feel ready. There's nothing wrong with being single and don't make an innocent person suffer with you. Update 2. Things have escalated much more than I anticipated, and I want to keep you all updated on the situation. After my last post, I thought everything was done when I uninvited my ex-mill and told her off. I was sure that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. A few days later, I got a call from my mother, and let me tell you, she was upset. My ex-mill had reached out to her again, sending more manipulative messages, including one that really crossed the line. You know, it's just sad to see how your son has already replaced my daughter. It's like she never even existed to him. That hit me like a brick. At first, I was angry, but then I realized something. My mother has her own history of loss, and I was so focused on my own grief and the wedding that I didn't take enough time to help her with the emotional weight she's carrying. My ex-mill's actions didn't just affect me, they were triggering her too. I had been so upset about them trying to manipulate me, but my mom was right in the middle of it all, and I hadn't really considered her mental load. So, I decided to sit down with my mom. We talked for hours, and I finally explained why I felt so strongly about not wanting anything at the wedding that honored my first wife. It wasn't just about the money, it was about moving on, about starting a new chapter with the woman I love. I know my mom had been grieving for years, and I could see how much it hurt her to see me cutting off ties with my ex-in-laws, but I needed to explain that it wasn't about disrespecting the past, it was about protecting the future. The conversation wasn't easy, but we ended on a good note. She understood, and even apologized for not giving me more space to make my own decisions. The guilt she had been carrying from my ex-mill's messages was lifted, and she promised to stay out of it going forward. But that wasn't the end of it. The next day, I get a message from my ex-mill demanding an explanation. I won't lie, part of me wanted to just ignore her, but I decided it was time to put everything out there once and for all. I wrote her a long message, calmly explaining that I wasn't disrespecting her daughter, but I was moving on with my life, and I wanted my wedding to be a celebration of that. I told her that I didn't want any further contact from her or her family about the wedding, and I asked that she respect my decision. I blocked her on everything after that. To my surprise, she didn't respond. I honestly thought she would keep pushing, but she stayed quiet, which felt like a small victory. At the same time, I felt a strange sense of relief. I no longer had to deal with that guilt and pressure from my past. Since then, things have been smoother. My fiancée and I have been planning the wedding in peace. We've decided to keep it simple, focusing on our love for each other and our future together. We're not including any big gestures for the deceased. Instead, we'll toast to my brother and enjoy some of his favorite drinks in his memory, but that's about it. It's our day, and it will be about us, our marriage, our life ahead. I can already feel the difference. The stress has been replaced with excitement, and I'm genuinely looking forward to the wedding. I no longer feel like I'm constantly defending myself or my relationship with my fiancée. I know that, for some, it might seem harsh to cut ties with my ex-in-laws, but I truly believe it was the right decision. The constant guilt-tripping wasn't healthy, and I'm not going to let it poison what should be the happiest day of my life. I guess the biggest lesson here is how important it is to set boundaries, even with family. Grief doesn't give anyone the right to manipulate others, and sometimes, you have to make hard choices to protect your own well-being and the well-being of the people you love. I'm glad I made the decision I did, even if it meant cutting ties with some people. My fiancée deserves the world, and I'm finally giving it to her. Now on to second story. Discovered a stranger lurking outside my parents' house at 1 a.m. claiming my long-lost high school boyfriend is searching for me. This happened 3 nights ago and I am going crazy trying to figure it out. I just moved into a new apartment 1 month ago and I am still unpacking and settling in. I have been using my parents' address as my mailing address, who live a few towns over, 20 minutes away, all of my life. 3 nights ago my parents call me at 2 a.m. freaked out and proceed to tell me this story. Apparently at 1 a.m. someone starts banging on their front door and repeatedly ringing their doorbell. My stepdad walks downstairs and opens the door, leaving the front glass door closed and locked. There was a man standing outside, who looked to be in his 30s, with a black hoodie on with the hood pulled up around his face. He didn't have any distinguishing facial features, facial hair or tattoos. The only thing my stepdad said was that he looked to be Hispanic. Neither my stepdad or my mother, who was watching the whole thing out a window, recognized the man. The man says, "I'm so sorry to bother you, but I'm looking for my full name." My stepdad plays dumb and says, "Who?" The man proceeds to state my full name again and says that my boyfriend is worried because I didn't come home that night. He claims to be a friend of my boyfriend and tells my stepdad that they are both out looking for me, worried because I didn't show up at home. I don't have a boyfriend. I live by myself with my 3 dogs and haven't been in a relationship in the past 5 to 6 months. Here's the weird part. My stepdad asked the guy what boyfriend he was talking about and the man tells him the name of the boyfriend I had when I was in 10th grade, nearly 20 years ago. My boyfriend in 10th grade has a very unique Italian name. I've never met anyone with a full name even close to his. He says my high school boyfriend's name a few more times to ensure my stepdad heard him and repeats that they are very worried about me. Is my stepdad sure I'm not inside? At this point my stepdad is weirded out and closes and locks the door in his face. The man does not leave. He lingers in front of my parents' house for the next 10 minutes, smoking cigarettes and talking on the phone. Finally, my parents calls the cops. About 5 minutes before the cops arrive, the man walks down to the dead end on their block and drives away in a silver car. Stepdad was unable to get the license plate. My parents file a police report and nothing else happens. After I hear this story I'm going nuts over the weird details. How would someone know who I dated nearly 20 years ago and what would the motive be of making up a story that included that weird detail about my past? I have not had contact with the 10th grade boyfriend in over a decade. Yesterday, I decide to message him on a Facebook to see if he has any insight. I tell him the whole story, he's just as confused as I am and claims to have no part in it. I am at a loss. I'm also really freaked out that some strange man is going through that much trouble at 1 a.m. to look for me. Any insights or ideas would be greatly appreciated. Update 1. My first theory would be, my parents also still live in the same house I grew up in. Everyone I went to school with would know the address. It's a nice house and one would assume that there's nice things in it. When I was a teen, I briefly got mixed up with the wrong crowd, who at the time wasn't too bad, but nowadays most of them are addicts and complete low lives who've done time in jail. If my parents told me this story, I would immediately assume that someone I knew in high school who's now an addict, was casing houses in the neighborhood, or even purposely targeting my parents' house because they already know the layout, and rang the bell to see if anyone was home, and when they answered they had to make up a lie so they went with that because knowing those details might give them plausible deniability to what their real intention was, robbing the house, and they can just claim they were confused if caught. Update 2. My stepsister, my stepdad's daughter, and her fiancé were at a house party right after the holidays, around early January of this year. While they were there, they started talking to a girl that neither of them knew. After some time talking together, the girl started talking about her ex-boyfriend and how they were going through a really tough time together. They had just recently broke up and she felt really bad because he was a wreck over it. Somehow, it came up that this girl's ex-boyfriend was my 10th grade boyfriend, the one with the really unique Italian name. The whole situation wasn't that big of a coincidence, since I went to high school with my stepsister's fiancé and we have a lot of mutual friends. So it makes sense that they were at a party that would include some people I went to high school with. As soon as my stepsister and her fiancé hear this, they both start freaking out and without revealing too many details, they tell the girl about the whole mystery and how weird it was. As they are telling the story, the girl's face starts to go white and she looks like she's about to cry. My stepsister and fiancé try to console her and ask her what's wrong. The wine/beer had been flowing at this point so I'm sure everyone was a little tipsy. The girl starts to tell them that a few nights ago, she was sleeping, and someone started banging on her door at, get this, fucking 1 a.m. Just like what a pay, Ned to me at my parents. The girl jumps out of bed and says she was absolutely terrified by how loud and aggressive someone was banging on her door. She said she literally thought it was going to break in. The girl has a Ring camera, so looks on her phone. There on the camera is a guy, in a black hoodie, banging on her door. She obviously pretends like she isn't home and keeps all of the lights off. He continues banging. As she is getting ready to dial 911, the guy stops and leaves. She said she was absolutely terrified. For whatever reason, she didn't end up calling the cops, but may have went to stay with a friend that night or the night after. My stepsister and fiancé are shocked by the details and how similar it is to my story, especially because of the mutual ex-boyfriend we share, except this girl literally just broke things off with him. They asked the girl if she has any idea who the guy is and she said no, but that it definitely is not the actual ex-boyfriend. She said this guy was much taller and heavier than our shared mutual ex. How fucking weird. This mystery is still unsolved and these new details honestly just make my head spin even more. No one else has showed up to my parents' door since the actual incident a year ago. Sounds like Italian name ex-boyfriend might have pissed off some unsavory people who know his dating history. Or he has a weird way of getting back at his ex-girlfriends. Hi all. So a few answers to some questions. 1. 10th grade boyfriend was into drugs when I dated him back in high school. No idea if he continued to use throughout his life or not, but can confirm he is definitely an addict who may or may not be in recovery currently. 2. 10th grade boyfriend has been to my parents' house multiple times. My parents still live in the same house I grew up in, and 10th grade boyfriend has been over many times while we dated in high school. I don't know where he currently lives, but he grew up about 10 minutes away from my parents' house. 3. 10th grade boyfriend and I had a horrific breakup. I met my high school sweetheart while I was dating him and broke up with him in a pretty messed up way. He held a grudge over it all throughout high school and was extremely nasty to me to the point of bullying. At one point, I had to get a security guard to escort me to classes because him and his friends were bullying me so badly. The bullying was only severe for the rest of 10th grade, but he definitely hated me all throughout high school. At one point, he did end up apologizing to me, and explained that he was just heartbroken over me breaking up with him, but at that point, I was way past the point of forgiving him. After graduating high school, we ran into each other maybe once or twice while I was home from college and he was totally cordial and nice with me and we laughed the high school experiences off. 4. I can definitely try reaching out to him on Facebook again and bringing back up this whole mystery with the added updates from his recent ex-girlfriend to see what his reaction is and gauge whether or not he's being truthful in it. I can also ask some mutual high school friends who know him about how he currently is, if he's into any shady shit or not. 5. My stepsis only gave me a first name and description of recent ex-girlfriend from the party. But I can go on 10th grade boyfriend's Facebook and look for her under his friends, then reach out to her on Facebook Messenger to inquire about ring footage and ask her more questions, also see if she ever reached out to cops. I agree this is probably the best thing to do if I want more answers. But I agree I need to be careful as I still don't know what is going on here. 6. 10th grade boyfriend does not have a brother, just one younger sister that I remember back from high school. I decided I am going to try and find out the girl's full name so I can look her up on social media. I may even be able to find her with just the first name that I already know, from my stepsis telling me. I can go on to 10th grade boyfriend's Facebook and look in his friend list for a girl with the same first name who looks like she could have been his ex-girlfriend. He may even have pictures with her tagged, so it shouldn't be that hard, unless he wiped his social media clean of her after they broke up. When I am able to find her, I'm going to reach out to her and try and get some answers. I think this is the safest route since I still don't know 10th grade boyfriend's role in this and I did already ask him once and he claimed to have no part in it or know anything, which may or may not have been a lie. Based on how scared my stepsis said this girl was, I'm betting she'll be willing to talk to me about it since we share the experience.